November 3rd, evening. Room number 20 on the 5th floor walk-up of Hotel Henri IV on Place Dauphine on Ile de la Cité, 4 blocks from the Notre Dame Cathedral in the middle of Paris. Dear folks back home, the time has come for me to recount our experiences. For the record, I had sent a letter from Amsterdam about the events of our first week over here, so I'll pick up now where I left off, and this will serve as chapter 2 of my trip diary. On Monday, October 26th, we checked out of the Hotel Hadsund in Amsterdam's red light district after a hearty breakfast of eggs, cheese, ham, bread, jam, and tea. We slung our heavy backpacks on and hiked southward through the city. It was a sunny day, and it took less than an hour to get to the edge and onto the busy freeway heading down through Utrecht to Antwerp. Within about 15 minutes, a car honked and cut across 2 lanes to pull over and pick us up. Great luck on our first try at hitchhiking. The driver was a middle-aged businessman driving down to Antwerp for meetings, so we had a good time chatting about Holland and traveling, and we got out at Breda to go east to Bladel to visit our friend John. We walked and hitched for almost an hour before a couple our age in a van took us right to Bladel. They were very nice, going out of their way to help, as friendly as we found all Dutch people. Anyways, we were strolling into the small town, and what do you know, we met our friend John coming up the street. He was staying with relatives there and took us to meet them. After they hosted a tea, we got a ride with John and his uncle into Eindhoven, where we watched them play volleyball. Then we headed to a bar to catch up, John telling us about his time since leaving Winnipeg the previous June, and we telling about our trip so far. We stayed together in a hostel that night and did some sightseeing the next day before partying. We wanted to get back on the road and hitchhike. After one local ride, a young Belgian took us into his country halfway to Antwerp. He let us off at a little corner near a small town, but within a minute we got another ride, this time an old bearded Flemish gent going home, way past Antwerp. After a while he offered in very poor English to take us home for the night. So we accepted and spent our first night with locals. It was great. His son and daughter spoke excellent English and were very friendly. The old man was an artist and ran a printing press, and his home was very well furnished, with paintings everywhere by him and by others with whom he traded. We ate with him health food. We were vegetarians and sort of religious, I think. The old man was like Jesus. We had a good visit with the daughter, a 19-year-old university student who gave us a friend's address in Athens to look up when we got there. A good sleep and breakfast, and the sun gave us a ride to the highway the next day. Then we hitched 2 short rides and walked about 5 kilometers to the French border. Getting through was easy, but hitching in France was not. It was rainy and cold, so we had a meal there and came back outside. Finally, a man going to Paris took us. He was, of course, Dutch and very friendly. He told us a great deal about Paris and took us right to his hotel, where he left his car and then took us on the metro to the Latin Quarter to find a hotel that we wanted to stay at. We had an address for a cheaper one. He asked directions many times, and we walked all over the same small area before we found it, the Hotel Centro des Écoles, where we got a nice room and where we are now. Our room that first night was 150 francs, with bath, so we had fun getting clean and dressed up to go out for a stroll in this Latin Quarter of the left bank. We had beers at a sidewalk cafe and had our first of many experiences in getting hosed. The price list might show a beer for 5 or 6 francs. Exchange was $1 Canadian to 4.6 francs. But they'd add a service charge and tax or something, so I paid 18 francs 40 for 2 beers and did not put my change in my pocket right away. So the waiter came back and took it. Next day, after a light breakfast of 1 croissant, a small bread, and a pot of tea, we moved to a nice room for a lower price of 90 francs, but without bath. It faced the street and had big windows that opened. We went walking around, seeing the Sorbonne and the Pantheon, taking pictures excitedly, and we could see the Eiffel Tower in the distance. I exchanged the last of my Canadian cash for francs and bought some groceries, including a bottle of wine, so we had our little supper in our room. In the evening, we went out for a stroll again down Saint-Germain Boulevard and saw a funny street act of humor and magic and juggling. Didn't understand much of the talk, but the performers were great. We ate some roasted hazelnuts and stopped for crepes and beers on the way home. We loved the crepes, made in minutes as you watch. Hot and spicy, the fromage juicy and dripping, all for 6 francs. Canned beers were only 5 francs, but we had to find a bus stop bench to eat on. We made big plans for Friday, the Eiffel Tower. After breakfast, we set out walking. I with the map steering across to the right bank and up to the Opera House to the American Express office where we exchanged 200 American dollars into 1,100 francs. Then past the Place de la Concorde, back to the left bank, past Hotel des Invalides, and along the Seine to the Eiffel. Up we went, right to the top, and took lots of pictures from that magnificent view. We had a meal in the restaurant on the second level on our way down. We were on the tower all afternoon and very tired as we walked home to our hotel, but very happy. We had spent well over 100 francs at the tower alone, so our budget was shot for the day, but what the heck? It's a once-in-a-lifetime trip. So after a cozy snack in our room, we drank beers in the bar across the street and did the crossword puzzle. Saturday, which was Halloween, we did the Louvre. Someone along the way had told us you could spend weeks in there, but we did it all in one afternoon and had a snack and a rest to boot. On the way there, though, we were crossing Pont Neuf Bridge, and we were suddenly confronted by a small family of, I guess I would say, gypsy people. 2 older girls and 2 or 3 younger kids surrounded me and held out newspapers, babbling away. I thought they were beggars and tried to push them aside, saying no, no, no. But for a few feet they kept me surrounded and the newspapers covered what was really going on. Pickpocketing! Finally I broke away and suddenly the little boy held up to me my wallet and glasses. The wallet, only some old ID, was in my chest pocket of my leather jacket. I had not felt him unzip it and pull it out under cover of the papers, and the glasses were in my shoulder bag, which was also zipped up and contained the camera and our passports. My money belt was untouched, as were the change and bills in my pants pocket. Either he didn't have time or just missed the good stuff. Anyway, since they got nothing valuable, they decided to return it. Pretty sharp operators, and I was really embarrassed. We then checked ourselves over carefully and continued on, feeling pretty weird. I'm glad now it happened that way, and we'll be very careful from now on. At the Louvre, the Mona Lisa was great. We listened to its story on headphones with hordes of other tourists and gawked. Venus de Milo and scads of other great figures of the past floated by on tired feet and an aching back. What a massive place, and only half of it in use. On the way home, we got some postcards from river vendors and also some beer and wine. That evening, we had supper in our room, but went out for crepes to top it off. Didn't see anyone in costume, so figured Halloween isn't big here. I sat by the window, looking out, and drank some beers and did some sketching. Lots of inspiration for great art in this town. Sunday, November 1st. Yesterday we had decided it was too hard to get by on our budget of $20 a day or 180 francs by having such a luxurious hotel room, so this morning we moved to a tiny older place called Hotel Henri IV on Ile de la Cité. It was 70 francs and pleasant. Intending to see more museums today, we strolled through the Jardin des Tuileries to the Jeu de Paume Museum, Impressionist art, but it was closed. A jazz festival was supposed to be starting today, but it was too expensive, so back to our aisle, and we checked out the Notre Dame. Entrance to the observation area was also closed today, so we walked all over our aisle and the next one, the little one called Ile Saint-Louis, bought some pastries and a baguette, some cheeses, meats and pickles, and went home for supper by our window overlooking the very quiet small park out front. That evening we went strolling in Saint Michel area, and while sitting enjoying beers on a sidewalk cafe, 2 people speaking English came up and sat next to us. She was from California, he was from Fort Garry in Winnipeg. So they told us all about Ireland from where they'd just come. After a fun chat, he started talking to her about jogging and having been in the Manitoba Marathon. So I figured it was time for us to go. We had cheap beers in a really boring cafeteria, then tried another outdoor cafe where they were too expensive. Stayed under budget, though. On Monday, we walked to the Jeu de Paume gallery of Impressionist painters and really enjoyed seeing the ones of which I have long treasured. It was thrilling. We think we enjoyed it more than the Louvre. Walking back, we stopped for quiche, jambon de Paris sandwiches, and beers in a boring little bar. At home again, we discovered it cost 9 francs to have a bath. Oh well. That evening we had Greek sandwiches and beers while waiting for a movie. We saw Fame and enjoyed it, even though the usherette had demanded a tip without doing anything for it whatsoever. Tuesday afternoon we walked across to the right bank to see a famous classy new shopping mall called Place des Halles, but after we got kind of ripped off in the loo, being charged for this and that and not even having toilet paper, we got out of there and walked east through the Palais Royal to Place des Vosges and visited the Victor Hugo Museum. Then the Colonne de Juillet and came home along the river. We bought crepes on our way to the supermarket, got fruit at outdoor vendors, and came home for supper. Today we had moved 2 floors up to a smaller room for only 58 francs, so it's easy now to keep to the budget. Rooms are the only thing cheaper here than in Amsterdam, where food and beer was cheaper, and the beer was better there. That evening we saw an old American black and white film starring Marlene Dietrich called La Scandaleuse de Berlin, or in English, Foreign Affair. On Wednesday we spent the day at the all-new Centre Georges Pompidou. Great! All the modern art you want and more, from Matisse and Picasso to Warhol and even Michael Snow. It's a pretty exciting, vast exhibition. Their own permanent collection takes up 2 huge floors. Again, tired but happy, we staggered home to our little room with a 6 of cheap beer and 2 croissants. Today is Thursday, November 5th, and the last day of this letter because tomorrow we're leaving town. At breakfast today, the guy from across the hall and I started talking. He's from Wardlaw Avenue in Fort Rouge in Winnipeg. Nice guy, and we enjoyed talking about our traveling experiences together. Then we did our laundry in the sink and hung it to dry on the balcony and walked out to the Arc de Triomphe, went up to the top and took more pictures, enjoyed the museum in there. Our dinner at a little vegetarian restaurant was a bit disappointing. The courses came too fast, there was no wine, and we didn't really enjoy the food. So we bought some wine and came back to our room to trim our hair and bathe and write this and plan for tomorrow. Not sure which way we'll go, but the hotel is booked for this weekend, so we have to leave. We might head south with our Interrail train passes. As soon as I know where we'll stay a while, I'll send an address. Please save this letter for me. Bye for now.